In this video, we're going to look at the patient reactivation. And in the context of this video, I'll be using the word patient interchangeably with the word customer or client. It's just in the context of this video, I'll be using healthcare as an example and wellness centers, chiropractic, stuff like this. So what is the patient reactivation? What is customer reactivation? It's a process of identifying the patients or customers who are inactive, who are idle. They used to be customers, but they stopped. They don't schedule appointments anymore, but they used to be a patient. And the goal is to strategically reach out back to them and invite them for the appointment and see how they're doing and basically continue a relationship with them. This usually requires targeting. So we don't want to reach any patients. We only want to reach, for example, the patients that have stopped coming over the last more than 6 months. So 6 months or more, they haven't been making any appointments. And it usually requires multi-channel communication. It doesn't have to be multi-channel, but usually in the common scenario, you want to communicate through the email, through SMS, and maybe through the voice AI, which we'll be covering today in this video. And it's important to know it's a win-win situation because if you bring the patients back, then it generates you more business. But also, if you bring them back before the symptoms, the problems that they have grow, become bigger and bigger, it's better for them to be proactive and for them to come for the evaluation or make an appointment and check their health before the symptoms that they have become more severe. All right. So that's what reactivation means. So if you don't know me, my name is Alex. I'm a founder of FrontDesk.net. We help medium and small-sized businesses to adopt voice AI and AI automation. So what is usually the problem? Based on some research, here's an example that every year a practice can bring new patients. For example, 45 of your patients this year are new versus the last year, but there's a problem with the churn. So the churn means the people patients that used to come for the appointments, they don't make appointments anymore for a variety of different reasons. So as you have your patients over here, you have a churn here, like little nails in the bottom of your bucket, and this is where you're losing the patients. And in some cases, you're losing them faster than you acquire new patients. So the patient churns is actually can impact business, as we just saw, in a big way. And if you can slow down the churn, if you can bring the patients back to you, you can actually save quite a bit of money and resources because in general, it takes you about 5 to 25 times more to acquire like resources and that what you have in time to acquire a new patient rather than retain previous existing patients that you already have. So if we look at an example of a chiropractic patients, the lifetime value, LTV, of a chiropractic patients could be in the range of between $2,000 and $5,000. But if you have a strong follow-up system, different plans, you bring the patients back, and then actually you can double the value of every patient with this approach. So that's significant for your business. And generally speaking, the database of patients that you have, it can be CRM, it can be EMR system, depending on how you keep records of your patients. You may have thousands, let's say 3,000 previous patients in your database, but currently this year, maybe you only have 600 active patients. That means that 80% of the patients that you have in your database are idle, inactive. And why should you do reactivation? Because first, it's a very low cost. You're reconnecting with the patients who already know you. They already warm leads. You already work with them before. So they trust you, right? And if you reach out to them and ask them, would they like to come back? Of course, they already trust you. But also, if you do it proactively, they'll actually trust you even more. Another advantage of the patient reactivation that can be done fairly quickly. You can start reactivating them today, tomorrow, right? You don't have to wait because you already have their contact information. You already know the issues that they had before. So it's very quick turnaround. And another point is that usually the conversion rates for patient activations are fairly high. Yeah, because they know you, because they've been here before. So it's much better than, let's say, advertising and trying to bring a new patient that might not even know you yet. Right. So the next thing that happened over the like 6, 12, 18 months on the market is the introduction of voice AI. And it's really a game changer for reactivation campaigns. It's game changer for a lot of different things, but reactivation campaigns specifically. So what is voice AI? It's a AI-powered voice agents that can have a natural human-like conversations. So in case of reactivation campaigns, the AI will call your former patients. It will ask them how they're doing, and it will have a little conversation, and it will invite them back to schedule an appointments, and it can schedule appointments on the phone with the patient, and it's all automatic. And from our experience with our customers, that 50 to 70% of the patients don't even realize they're actually talking to AI. This is how good AI is these days. And it's actually very empathetic. It can have a good conversation. So it's actually, and because it's completely automatic, it's scalable. You can reach out to hundreds of patients every week and without spending too much time from serving your active patients that you already have. So, there's a few key steps. One is you have to identify the patients you want to contact. Usually, there's a patient who didn't schedule appointments with you for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You can choose what's the time frame. The next one, as I already mentioned, it's very personalized. When you reach out to them using AI, AI is the name of the patient, and of course they have a phone number. So you can mention the previous pain problems that the customer has. So it can be a very personal conversation. Then you can schedule those campaigns when you want to. Like you can run the small campaigns, 20, 50 patients, or you can run on a massive scale. You can run you can make hundreds of phone calls per week without, again, distracting your front desk assistants. And then you run the analytics and you see what works and how the patient is responding to this patient outreach that you have. So here's a little example. If you do it without AI, maybe your front desk assistants can make 20 phone calls per week. And for some of them, that from our experience, because they're very busy serving active patients, this may be a little bit hard for them to do it for some. And in case you get a 15% reactivation rate, because the phone may be busy and they have to call it multiple times. So if you do 20 patients a week with a 50% activation, that's about 3 patients schedule appointment, bring them back per week. That's about 12 per month. So, and it's suppose the value of each patient for that you bring back is about $300 for appointment or maybe follow-up appointments. So that's total about $3,600 a month when you're doing it manually. When we do it through AI, we can reach hundreds of patients per week. We actually can reach hundreds of patients per day if we choose to. But let's say we run the campaigns for hundreds or few hundred campaigns patients per week, let's say 100 per week. Reactivation rate, let's say 35%, because we can actually detect if the message went into the voicemail and we're going to call the patients back a couple hours later until we reach out to them. So at this rate, let's suppose we have about 35 patients per week reactivated. That's about over 130 per month, and that's going to give you about $42,000 per month of additional revenue from reactivating your previous patient you had. Here's more examples. This one, the bigger healthcare providers, but in general, this is what research shows that about 25 to 35% actually, once you reach out to them, you have a nice conversation with them, they schedule 30, let's say 30% of them immediately schedule the follow-up appointments with you. So that's really high ROI. And with the cost of setting up the campaign, training the voice agent, running the campaign, and running other follow-ups, the system pays for itself usually within 2 months. And then it just, after that, it's just pure profit for you, just additional revenue. So here are the best practices for reactivation. First one is you have to segment the list. I already said you can, for example, segment the list patient that didn't come for the last 6 months or 9 months. You can do 3 months. You can group them by different categories as well, proximity to your office and other things. The message are personalized because we use the parameters in the voice AI, for example. It will actually use the patient name and it will use different patient name for different patients. So the conversation are very personalized. Best practice is to use multi-channel outreach, so email, SMS combined. If you want to get a better results, you can use multiple channels. And it's also recommended to offer some kind of incentive for the patients to come back. For example, you can offer them completely free examination. You can offer them 50% of the first visit, something like that. You don't usually have to, but to motivate them, you can offer some incentives for them. You can also provide some kind of educational content through either voice messages or through mails or emails. And it's also recommended to include some testimonials or social proof, so-called, what basically how it works for the other patients. They didn't have much of a pain, but because they came early, the doctor was able to detect something else in their health and was taking care of the symptoms proactively. And the big benefit of all this, that the process can be completely automated. You set it up once, and then we can run it, for example, for you, and it doesn't really take much of your time. There's a few other things to consider. HIPAA compliance. If you share any health information with the patients over the phone, you should be HIPAA compliant, but you just have to have a person name and the phone number, and you just can invite them back to schedule appointment. You have to integrate with the existing HR system or CRM or database that you have, so you can actually filter or pull out from only the patients that you want to target. Then you have to define the activation campaign parameters. For example, patients over that didn't have appointments over the last 6 months. If you want to run a small test campaign, for example, for the first 10 patients, then 50, then 100. So this is some kind of a scheduling parameters. You can also change the script, the voice, and other things. And then you launch it and you monitor the results and you learn from the results and see what works. And then you refine a campaign, how you communicate with the patients based on the feedback you're getting based on the results. So, in conclusion, patient churn is significant and costly for each business, but the good news is that you can actually reach out back to your former patients because they're warm leads, and you have a relationship with them, and it's a very low acquisition cost compared to like advertising or other forms of marketing. Voice AI is very powerful now, and automation, you will see it later in the video. Automation is really, really great. So once you set up the whole system, actually running the activation campaign is fairly seamless. The ROI is very quick. Again, as I said, if you're running looking around you can involve hundreds of patients in the activation campaign. Let's say you can run 1,000. Usually you can expect to reactivate probably between 10 and 20%, depending on the quality of your contacts. So you can bring hundreds of patients back to your practice, and within the next 60 days, and again, although it will pay for itself fairly quickly. And it's also recommended to run this maybe every 6 months or so, because as you keep working, some new patients will be dropping, will have a new churn, so it's better to activate them in 6 months again. Again, so this is the contact information if you want to reach out to me and to my team. You can also find more information at frontdesk.net, or you can reach it as ai.frontdesk.net on the email. So now let's look at an example how actually it works. So here's an example of the contact list. It's a demo. This is not real phone numbers, not real people. So, but you basically create a CSV file like this. It can be a Google spreadsheet. You can create it in Excel. Basically, we have a first name, a phone number to reach, number of months since last visit. If you want to use this number, again, we don't have to. And we can also mention the paying category. For example, somebody has a back problem, again, and in this case, Olivia, and she didn't come back for the last 11 months. So this is the first thing that we need to have. We need to have a list of customers, which we usually get from our EHR system or database or CRM system. The next thing we do is we go to our voice assistant interface and we create a voice assistant specific for this outreach campaign. I'm not going to go through details. There's a lot of parameters over here, but basically you create an assistant that can make, so my name is Emma, I'm a digital assistant. Is this Alex, for example, right? So this is how it's going to communicate. And there's a whole script over here how this digital assistant can have a conversation with the patient. And again, this will be specific, customized for every patient. The next thing we do is we create a list of phone numbers, a list of phone numbers that we use for making a phone call. For each assistant, we assign a phone number. But if you want to use, usually in US, we use Twillio for reaching out to the patients, and we usually use a local area code. For example, if we use in the Bay Area, we use 415 phone number. If we do this in Arizona, in Phoenix, we'll use 480 area code. So those phone numbers, we buy them from Twilio and we use them, and we have to warm them up to make sure those phone numbers are not flagged as spam when the customer or patient receives the call. For the outbound campaigns, that's the setup we have to do. For the inbound phone calls, it's actually much easier because inbound phone calls, when the patients call you, there's not much of a restrictions on that because patients call you, you're not calling them. So these phone numbers are much easier to set up. All right. So once we have an assistant and we have a phone number, then we create an outbound campaign. And the way we do outbound campaign is usually just, this is a number of test campaigns. Let me pull maybe a few of them. So it might look like this. So we basically select a couple phone numbers and a name, and then we run this campaign. In this case, we're using VAPI as a platform provider. And for each of those campaigns, it will tell us, okay, for example, we executed 11 phone calls. 10 of them picked up the phone number, picked up the call, and 27 went into the voicemail. So we can look at the statistics for that. So again, this is where we got the patients from. So we just load them up, and when we create a new campaign, we just provide some parameters, including the phone number that we're going to use. And after that, we just drag and drop this CSV file over here, and then we launch the campaign. And that's pretty much how we initiate that. But at the end of it, when assistant is making phone call, at the end of every phone call, it generates a so-called end of call report. And that end of call report is sent to AI workflow automation. This is just a little example of that. We can schedule appointments during the phone call. We can also do some kind of analysis using OpenAI to extract some additional parameters over there. And I'll just show you the results. We save the results of each phone call into, for example, in this case, we save it into the spreadsheet, in the Google spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be a Google spreadsheet. It could be your CRM. It can be your HR system. But in this case, just for demo purposes, this is just demo calls. You will see that when the call was made, the phone number, the name the person will call to, and also you can see if the customer ended the call or the call went into the voicemail. Again, this is just the test calls, and you can see the summary of the conversation. So we're just generating a little summary, and you can also see the whole script of the conversation. And when we're doing testing, we're also using recording those conversations, so you can help us to train the system. And at the end, the last column here is just tells you how long was the conversation. If the conversation was just a few seconds, most likely either the customer hung up or it maybe went into the voicemail, but meaningful conversations are usually about 30, 50 seconds in that range. And sometimes they go over a minute. But it's usually enough, between 40 and 60 seconds. It's usually enough to have a meaningful conversation and invite the patient back. And we see very good results from those phone calls. The last thing I want to show you is the website. If you want to get more information, you go to frontdesk.net. And there's different use cases. There's examples how receptionists can answer your call, basically for inbound calls. There's a little cost calculator, how much money it can save you. And if you click on the solutions, there's healthcare and medical use cases, and there's a patient reactivation, which we just covered today. And you click on that, you will see some of the numbers and comparison and get a little bit more details about how it works and how much money you can save and the efficiency of your practice. Again, this is just a brief introduction to what reactivation is and how you can use VoiceAI for to reactivate your former patients or customers. Again, you can reach out to us on any of those contacts. And also on the website, there's a button over here that you can click to book a call to discuss. This is the free call. You can call us and discuss specific implementation for your business. Oh, that's it for today. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next.